When you're solving a system of linear equations, one of three things can happen. And I'm going to use graphs to explain it. The first one is you graph a line, and then you graph another line, and they intersect at a point right here. That is when you're going to get this. The system has a unique solution. And then you just type in whatever ordered pair that is, because it'll have, it'll be like 2, 3, and that's what you'll put in here. All right. Now, there are two situations where that doesn't happen, and that is the inconsistent or consistent dependent. So I'm going to start with the inconsistent. Whoops. The inconsistent one is when you graph your line and you get one line here, and then you get another line that runs parallel to it. Parallel lines never touch each other. So that would be this situation. You'd be saying the system has no solution because they don't touch. And then there's the third method. And the third one is when you have a line, and then you go and you graph another line, and it's literally right on top of that line. It's the exact same line. And so that is when you're going to say the system has infinitely many solutions and they must satisfy the equation, and then you're going to have to take one of these two equations and solve it for y. That's basically what's happening here. So let me erase all this and I will do this problem to show you. Right here, these two equations, your x's are lined up nice and pretty. Your y's are lined up, your equal signs are lined up, and your numbers are lined up. And so what you're going to do is go ahead and combine these two equations, which is just a fancy way of saying adding them. Now, when I add the yellow stuff, negative x plus positive x, that's 0. Plus, when I add the pink stuff, the negative 4y and the positive 4y, that's also 0. Then you got your equal sign right here, it lines up, and then you got the purple stuff, and negative 4 plus positive 4 is also 0. And what I end up with is 0 equals 0. The x's and the y's completely cancel out, but what you're left with, this right here, that's a true statement. So that tells you that you have infinitely many solutions. So I'm going to be clicking on this, but I have to type in an equation for y equals. So pick one of these two equations, it doesn't matter which. I'm going to grab this one, which is x plus 4y equals 4, and you just solve it for y. You could take the top equation and solve it for y. You'll get the exact same answer that I'm going to get right now. So I am going to subtract x from both sides. It cancels out there. I'm left with 4y. And then I'm going to put this in the linear equation form, okay? Because it says solve a system of linear equations. You're going to put it in the y equals mx plus b form, if you remember that. Y equals mx plus b. That's the standard form for a linear function. So I'm going to actually put the negative x in front of the positive 4. All right. So what I'm going to have is 4y equals negative x plus 4. And now I need to divide off that 4. But what you do to one side, you got to do to the other. So everybody gets divided by 4. The 4 cancels out here. And then I have to realize that negative x over 4, this is really an invisible one. So what I have is negative 1/4 x. Plus, and then this guy right here, 4 divided by 4, that's just 1. So what I'm going to type into this box right here is this equation. Okay? Now, on the second one down here, the problem with this one is your x's could be lined up, your y's could be lined up, your equal signs are lined up, but then look at your numbers. It's kind of jacked, isn't it? So I got to fix that. All I'm going to do to fix this is, see this plus 8? I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. All right. so that what I'm now going to have is that top equation will be x plus 4y equals, because these 8's cancel out, and then 0 minus 8 is a minus 8. And then my bottom equation here is still negative x minus 4y equals negative 8. And now you can see the x's are nice and lined up. The y's are nice and lined up. The equal signs are nice and lined up. And my numbers over here are lined up. And once again, I'm going to go through and combine. X minus x, that's 0. Plus 4y minus 4y, that's 0. I get 0 on the left. Here's the equal sign. And then, hope you can see this, am I out of range? Negative 8 minus 8 more, that's a negative 16. So what I'm left with over here is 0 equals negative 16. Now, I don't know about you, but the last time I checked, 0 does not equal negative 16. They're not equal. That's not a true statement. When that happens, what that means is there's no solution. That means you have two parallel lines that never touch each other. You know, when you graph it, you can see the parallel lines, but when you're doing it algebraically, it's like, what am I supposed to see? This. If the x's and the y's cancel out and what you're left does not equal each other, those are parallel lines. There is no solution. If you do this and your x's and y's cancel out and you get 0 on the left, but the numbers cancel out also on the right, you'll get 0 equals 0, which is a true statement. And then that's this situation. It's an infinitely many solutions. That just means every x and every y will match up. So they ask you just to put your answer in the form of an equation. It's going to satisfy the equation y equals, and it was this one over here, negative 1/4 x plus 1. So no matter what x you stick in here, when you multiply times negative 1/4 and add it to 1, it'll give you the y coordinate. And that xy coordinate will work for both this equation and that equation. Because this is a situation where you've got a line on top of another line. And that's all that means. And I did notice that when I was going through these, sometimes you will have to do this one right here, but that's just a regular one where neither the x nor the y cancel out, and you actually get an answer. The x's will cancel, but the y's won't, so you'll solve for y and get like y is 5, and then you'll take that and you'll plug it back into the x, and then of course you'll have to come here and you'd be like, I don't know, x is 3 and y is 5. You'll actually get numbers, and you'll just click on this one and, plug in the correct ordered pair. Whew. Okay, I hope that helped.